covering the races that impact you. This is Wave News, Decision 2023.
Good morning. We're going to get to all of those results from Decision 2023 in just a little bit. They're also scrolling there on the bottom of your screen. But right now, here's meteorologist Tawana Andrews. You're getting ready to head outside. You know what? If they let you wear shorts to work, wear shorts. Wear shorts.
T-shirt, shorts, flip-flops, pretend you're on vacation. Why not? With the warmth we have today, why not? Now, what we're seeing across the area right now, some clouds drifting on through as we have a front sitting over us. A couple of sprinkles showing up here and there, some areas of drizzle in portions of Jennings County, especially to the east of North Vernon. Some of that in the northeastern portions of Jefferson County in Indiana, and it also is drifting through the Carrollton area. But overall, yeah, things are quiet and dry to start off the day with those temperatures in the 50s for most of us. A couple of low 60s here and there, 63 degrees in Paoli, 61 at the airport in Louisville, and 61 as well for those of you in Fort Knox. Now, about these clouds today, those are going to move out later on this morning. So by lunchtime, it's all about the sunshine, and that will help us to warm into the upper 70s and the low 80s for your highs later on today. So yes, it is going to be toasty once we get into this afternoon, but also windy. In fact, if you're planning on eating outdoors today, just make sure you properly secure those napkins, because we're going to be talking about the wind coming out of the south, gusting to near 30 to 35 miles per hour as we get into the late afternoon and then the evening hours. Going to keep that strong wind overnight. And by the way, once we get into your Thursday cooler, after that first cold front moves through, since the front's still going to be nearby on Friday, it will keep some showers in our forecast for some, but not all of us. Looking at the roads right now, no issues as you're heading out. Yes, we have a couple of stalled vehicles, but those are not blocking the flow of traffic at all. But the thing that you'll have to watch for later on today is that crosswind coming out of the south. So portion of the Lee Hamilton, the Waterson Expressway, parts of the Snyder, parts of 64. This is where you're going to feel that extra push from the wind. So be extra careful if you're driving, especially a higher profile vehicle, and as you're passing by those semis. Shannon.
I know that every day I have left as governor is special, that every day we have left working together is a day to improve the lives of our fellow Kentuckians. I love this Commonwealth. And I'm going to work as hard as I can for each and every one of you. So from the Beshear family to every Kentucky family, we love you, good night, and God bless.
That's Governor Andy Beshear last night addressing his supporters at Paris Town Hall as he was announced the winner of Kentucky's governor race once again. That means for just the third time now in Kentucky's history, the governor wins re-election, defying the odds in a state that votes traditionally conservative. The other 5 statewide offices all went red. Attorney General Daniel Cameron did get more than 629,000 votes. That's 47%, but fell short to Beshear's 53%. Andy Beshear promised to fight for all families in this state in that acceptance speech. And Wave News reporter Josh Ninke live this morning, kicking off our team coverage. Josh.
Hey, Shannon, yeah, obviously a huge race last night, and not just because of the impact on Kentucky for the next 4 years, but also because of the money spent. Between the two candidates and political action groups, they spent more than $60 million on this campaign. Now, this election wasn't nearly as tight as it was 4 years ago. The race was called for Beshear after about 3 hours. Daniel Cameron conceded pretty soon after that. It took Beshear's opponent more than a week to concede last time. Only 5,000 votes separated the two that year. Beshear won by about 70,000 votes this time around.
We have an opportunity now, not for 4, but for 8 years that'll set up decades of prosperity.
Well, the governor gave a pretty short speech after his victory, mostly filled with thanking his staff and the voters. And he also got a call from President Biden congratulating him. Now, reminder, Kentucky governors are limited to 2 consecutive terms, so we'll have somebody new after the next 4 years. But Beshear says he plans to get a lot of work done in that time. Live here looking over Louisville, Josh Ninke, Wave News.
All right, thank you, Josh. So we know that Daniel Cameron called Governor Beshear, and then he conceded around 9:15 last night, and he told his supporters, well, That didn't turn out exactly how I wanted it to. He thanked key members of his campaign and his wife and family for their hard work and support. He said he took huge pride in having Robbie Miles as his running mate. Cameron said he had called Beshear, wished him well. He said the campaign for both of them had a big similarity. They both focused on improving the state in their own ways. Cameron also talked about his family's message moving forward.
Thank you all. Thank you so much for your willingness and commit to this campaign and this effort. An effort that was ultimately about our kids and our grandkids. You know, but that's what it's about here on this earth. About leaving it better than you found it. And giving a better future for your kids and your grandkids. So let us continue in that effort. Let us continue in that work.
So, as Josh was mentioning, much different race this year from when Beshear won his first term in office in 2019. At that time, he was facing Matt Bevin. Wave News reporter Kathleen Ninke has been taking a look at these two races and has some of the key turning points here.
Right. That big headline is that Andy Beshear barely eked out the win in 2019 to Matt Bevin. Let's go back to it. Barely 5,000 votes. And this year, almost 70,000 more Kentuckians chose him over Republican Daniel Cameron. Two counties in our region flipped from 2019. So let's zoom in right here on our area. So we look back at 2019 and then we flip to 2023 and you see these two counties right here, Nelson and Boyle County, both flipped for Beshear. In Louisville, specifically, Beshear received 70% of the vote this year. And that's up even from 2019 when he received 67% of the vote. Let's turn on the heat map, which shows us the darker the blue, the more Beshear dominated that county's vote. The darker the red, the same for Cameron. Interestingly, in 2019, looking right here, Beshear's strongest win was here in Jefferson County, his home county. But back to 2023, and his strongest win was actually in Lexington's Fayette County. They gave Beshear almost 72% of that vote right there. Beshear's from Louisville. Cameron went to U of L, but he grew up in E-Town. So let's look at Hardin County, where just more than half of people chose Cameron for governor compared to 4 years ago. Let's look at that when 64% of people voted for him for attorney general. What changed? 14% of voters' minds in Cameron's home county. Maybe the politics, maybe the position from AG to governor, maybe the opponent. Also, when we look at the total state, the mix of counties, red to blue, from 2019 to 2023. It's not just you. There really are more blue counties this time around. 8 of Kentucky's counties turned blue to 2023, while 2 flipped red for this year. Lastly, let's check out our key bellwether counties. These are those fascinating places, Kenton, Campbell, Scott, Madison, and Warren counties, where historically, whichever way these 5 counties go, so does the race itself, and it holds true in 2023. Just part of what delivered Beshear that decisive 5-point win for his second term of governor. Shannon?
Thank you so much. So while we have a Democratic governor in office again for the next 4 years, Republicans took the other 5 statewide races on the ballot. It was a sweep across the board for the GOP last night. So this includes the Office of Secretary of State, Auditor of Public Accounts, State Treasurer, Commissioner of Agriculture, and Attorney General. Looking at that race for AG, Russell Coleman will now succeed Daniel Cameron. The Republican and former U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Kentucky defeated his Democratic challenger, Pamela Stevenson. Colonel Coleman got more than 750,000 votes, or 58% of the vote, to Stevenson's 42%. In his speech last night, he said he's going to work across the aisle to get things done.
As Attorney General, I look forward to working with anyone, regardless of party, who will stand with our law enforcement, who will protect our families, and who will help me put drug traffickers and violent criminals behind bars where they belong.
Coleman was also a former senior advisor and legal counsel to Senator Mitch McConnell. Former President Donald Trump had appointed him to the position of U.S. Attorney for the Western District He resigned after the riots at the U.S. Capitol. We're going to be bringing you much more election coverage throughout this morning, but first, here's Tawana.
For today, we're talking about the sunshine in the forecast and highs near 80 degrees. Yes, feeling like summer in the middle of fall. Now, as we look ahead, we are going to see some windy conditions, some rain, and some cooler air coming our way. I'll let you know when to expect all of it after the break.
Thanks, Tawana. Our Election Day coverage will continue this morning. We are live in Indiana, where tragedy overshadowed a Clarksville race. Plus, more on Kentucky's race for Secretary of State. It's 6:08.
This is Wave News Sunrise.
A candidate who is running for a seat on the Clarksville Town Council died on Election Day. David Red Worrell collapsed while greeting voters yesterday. Wave News reporter Olivia Russell live in southern Indiana with more on what happened.
Shannon Worrell was one of 5 people hoping to fill one of the 2 open at-large seats on the town council here in Clarksville. He was greeting voters at the polls yesterday when he collapsed. Now, this happened at Clarksville's Renaissance Academy. Worrell was rushed to the hospital but died a short time later. According to our partners at the News and Tribune, Worrell was known for being an active community member who served as a volunteer organizer for ClarkFest or fundraising for the Clarksville Fraternal Order of Police Shop with a Cop and bike donation event Bikes or Bust. The town of Clarksville released a statement saying in part, quote, "We will never forget his passion for public service and his unwavering desire to create positive change in our town. David's memory will live on in the hearts of those who knew him and the community he strived to serve." Worrell finished in the fight for those 2 seats in 3rd place, right behind Bob McEwen and Jennifer Voynier, who will now sit on the Clarksville Town Council. Live in southern Indiana, Olivia Russell, Wave News.
Thank you, Olivia. The Democratic candidates ended up taking the seats in Louisville's Metro Council election, some getting reelected, but we do have one new winner. In District 6 and 8, both candidates ended up getting reelected. Philip Baker of District 6 says he's ready to continue the hard work he started earlier this year. And Ben Reno Weber won in District 8. That's the Highlands area. He says he likes how people got more involved in the campaign for this election cycle. And in District 3, Shamika Parrish-Wright is a first-time council member. She says she's excited to get to work with the rest of the council. So the Metro Council now has 16 Democrats and 9 Republicans and 1 independent in office. It is 6:14. Here is Tawana taking a look at the weather, and a lot of people wondering about tomorrow night for that big U of L game.
Oh, don't worry. I got the forecast.
Okay, good.
I'm going to talk about that in just a second. Let's talk about the warmth for today. We have this stationary front just draped right along 64, basically across our area, and it's playing a role in our temperatures and a few rain chances across the area right now. We are mainly just dealing with the clouds overhead at the moment, and we're watching a couple of areas of just some drizzle showing up. We were seeing it in portions of Jennings County, but that has since cleared. A couple of sprinkles showing up in the Madison area, and same thing for those of you further to the east of Carrollton. But overall, not really talking about much in terms of rain chances for this morning. Just going to be seeing a few areas of drizzle, and that is it. But by the time we reach around 9, 10 o'clock this morning, the clouds will start to clear. We'll keep that sunshine around through the afternoon. Upper 50s and low 60s for those of you along and south of that front. That is where we're still seeing a lot of that warmth, especially for those of you who've been locked in with the clouds for a good chunk of the overnight hours. For those of you further to the northeast of that front, though, towards North Vernon, towards Carrollton, this is where we're a little bit cooler, seeing low 50s for your current temperatures. Looking into New Albany right now, we're keeping an eye on these flags, and you know on windy days, these are the flags that we always watch because they will be whipping. Not so much right now, they're just kind of just gently floating in the breeze with the wind. Less than 5 miles per hour across the area. But as we get into the late morning and the afternoon, that wind is going to pick up with some gusts near 30 miles per hour coming out of the south. That means travel, especially on the Watterson, parts of the Snyder, parts of 64, will be a little bit more difficult as we have that southerly wind. But the wind plus today's sunshine working together to warm us up. We're going to be looking at highs today in the upper 70s and the low 80s across the area. A record for this date, 82 degrees set back in 2020. We can at least tie it once we get to this afternoon. For tomorrow, the front that is off towards our west, the cold front, will slowly but surely make its way through our region. It's going to happen early in the morning as we approach midnight. Some light showers here and there. We're going to keep that chance around at least through the 7 a.m. time frame. Once we get past that, the clouds clearing, temperatures actually fall down into the 50s by about mid-morning tomorrow. And it's going to be a slow and steady rebound for tomorrow afternoon. We'll watch some clouds rolling back in for the afternoon, mainly upper-level clouds as we climb into the upper 50s and low 60s for afternoon highs. Then more of those clouds through your Thursday evening, but keep in mind that we are looking to stay dry for the U of L game against Virginia for Thursday night. We'll just have those clouds overhead as temperatures fall down into the 50s. And then on your Friday, this is when we'll have to deal with a few more rounds of rain as that front is still going to be to our south. We'll watch for some rain riding right along it. So those of you along and south of the Ohio River have a much better chance to see some of those showers come Friday morning, Friday afternoon, a lot drier. And we're going to keep the sun shining, the cool temperatures around through the weekend, 50s for highs then, gradually warming through the 60s as next week goes along.
Wow, don't need to pull out the winter jackets just yet. All right, thank you. Well, this morning we have the same person in the Office of Secretary of State. You take a look right here. Incumbent Republican Michael Adams with 60% of the vote, beating Charles Buddy Wheatley, who took 39%. Wheatley, a two-term representative. Wheatley ran unopposed in the primary. He lost in 2022 in his state rep, but Adams, in his first term in office, expanded voter access during the pandemic and helped enact early voting laws in 2021.
The voters spoke clearly, and we should take note of what they said. Kentuckians rejected a negative campaign steeped in anger and divisiveness and a fixation on extraneous issues. Kentuckians rewarded a positive campaign that offered uplift, unity, and a focus on the real problems that matter to our people.
Well, taking a look now at how the two candidates performed statewide. This is the map of Kentucky. Boy, you can see that Buddy Wheatley taking just Louisville and Lexington. But I'm going to turn on the heat. And remember, the darker the color, that means the win for that party was even greater. So you can see where the Democrat did win, not a significant amount. But let's take a look back in 2019. That is when Adams faced Heather French Henry. So let me just change that race. Here we go, 2019. You can see that Heather French Henry at that point had 47% of the vote. Moore counties that year did go a little bit blue. Let me turn on the no heat and you can see how that looked. And that is when Adams had 52% of the vote. So his win this year, much greater margin. So he maintains that position of Secretary of State. So he'll continue overseeing elections, business filings, and public notary commissions. It is 6:19. Much more election coverage coming up this morning right here on Wave News Sunrise.
Here's a look at the current Kentucky Lottery jackpots. The Kentucky Lottery, over $4.8 billion in grants and scholarships.
Tonight, Republican presidential candidates will make their case at the third Republican debate. The list of the 5 candidates who will be on the stage in Miami are right there on your screen. You can watch this right here on Wave News starting at 8 p.m. A recent NBC poll from Iowa shows 43% of Republican voters list former President Donald Trump as their first choice to win the nomination. However, you do not see his name on that list. That's because the former president not taking part in this debate again. Instead, he will be hosting a campaign rally in South Florida in Hialeah, heavily Hispanic part of that area. Trump also opted out of the first 2 Republican debates. He did testify Monday in a civil fraud trial, and today his daughter Ivanka is scheduled to testify in New York. Okay, waking up. This is the big news from People magazine. This guy right here, named this year's sexiest man alive, actor Patrick Dempsey, revealed as the new face of the title, and he says he's completely shocked. The 57-year-old actor started his career in the 80s. He was in the movie Can't Buy Me Love, Tawana, have you ever seen that movie?
Mm-mm.
Oh my gosh, you have to watch it. So good. Of course, we all know him as Dr. McDreamy from Grey's Anatomy. And Dempsey's going to be an Italian race car driver in an upcoming Ferrari biopic in December. And by the way, he has dyslexia, so he has to memorize all of his lines. Yeah, I think he's well-deserved to win that award, but all the other people in the newsroom this morning disagreed with me.
I don't disagree with you. Not my first choice, but I definitely do not disagree. I mean, just rewatch Grey's Anatomy and you'll see why none of us really fully disagree. For those of you heading out today, warm and windy with gusts near 30 miles per hour, temperatures jumping into the upper 70s and the low 80s. Now, as we look ahead, we're going to be seeing a few chances of rain early tomorrow morning. Most of that looking pretty light. Temperatures only in the low 60s for afternoon highs on your Thursday. Friday, a slightly better chance for rain, especially across Kentucky, highs in the 50s. Then cooler, drier, comfortable through the upcoming weekend. And then we're going to gradually warm into the 60s by next Monday and Tuesday. Upper 60s by the end of next week with a few rain chances showing up towards the following weekend.
Thanks, Tawana. Breaking news alert from overnight. A man is dead after a shooting in the California neighborhood. This happened around 11:30 last night in the 1100 block of Dixie Highway. Officers found a man with gunshot wounds at the scene. He was taken to U of L Hospital where he died. Police do not have any suspects. They're asking people with information to call 502-574-LMPD. A Louisville man who shot and killed another man during a carjacking will spend 30 years in prison. Ashton Nally was convicted on several charges, including carjacking and murder. Prosecutors say he shot and killed Travis Nagdy during the incident on Crittenden Drive in 2020. Nagdy was a popular figure in Louisville's Black Lives Matter movement. Nally will spend 30 years in federal prison, followed by a 5-year term of supervised release. Waking up this morning, the day after Election Day, and Governor Andy Beshear still in office. We're breaking down that race, and we'll have reaction from both sides coming up this morning on Wave News Sunrise.
With breaking news happening now, this is a Wave News Alert.
Good morning. Yeah, we're going to get to all of the numbers from Decision 2023. If you're just waking up, you went to bed before those results came in. We'll let you know who is still in office and who's new in office. I'm Shannon Kogan alongside meteorologist Tawana Andrew. But the big weather headline today is
the warm weather. It is going to be kind of wacky just thinking about the fall leaves and then 82 degrees for a high. Wow. It is certainly going to be a weird one. But hey, I know a lot of people are going to take advantage of this warm day while we have it. Peeking in at downtown Louisville, if you look closely at the sky, you can actually see some of those clouds that are sitting overhead right now. And they're not going to stick around all day, but certainly keeping things on the milder side for us for this morning. Let's talk about your temperatures. Currently in the 50s and the low 60s, so pretty comfortable as you're heading out. Maybe some of you may need a light jacket, but that's certainly up to you. But what we're going to be looking at for today, plenty of that warm weather on the forecast. So heading to the closet today, it's more about the sunglasses. Really going to need the t-shirt, the shorts, and even maybe those flip-flops this afternoon, because yes, we're talking about those highs in the upper 70s, low 80s, potentially at least tying a record in Louisville today. For those of you who just don't want that sunshine beaming on you, grab an umbrella and that will be fine. But you don't really need the umbrella for any rain chances until we get into early tomorrow. The wind today, though, going to be on the strong side, gusting to near 30 miles per hour as we get into the afternoon, steadily coming out of the south across the area, and that is going to play a role in our travel later on today. So that's something we're going to watch closely, because those crosswinds could certainly make travel a little bit more difficult across parts of wave country. Not seeing any issues across the region right now, but as that steady, southerly, strong wind comes into play after lunchtime and through the afternoon into tonight, for those of you traveling on 64, portions of the Snyder, the Waterson Expressway, this is where you could see a little bit more of that push. And if you're traveling to the north, maybe traveling on 65 northbound, that wind will help you go a little bit faster, but not too fast, of course. But thankfully, going to be seeing calmer conditions as we get into tomorrow. I'll talk about some rain chances coming our way and some cooler weather for the weekend in just a bit.
All right. Thank you, Tawana. I do love that closet you have. It took about 3 hours to call the biggest race in the Commonwealth. Governor Andy Beshear defeated Daniel Cameron to keep his seat for another 4 years. Josh Ninke live this morning with more on that race and also what is next here, Josh.
Yeah, Shannon, it really didn't take much time at all to call that race for Beshear this time around, especially compared to 4 years ago. That time, it took more than a week for his opponent to concede. But last night was just all about the celebration. The governor gave a short speech thanking everyone in his campaign, all the state employees, and, of course, thanking the voters. Now, this was a big night, too, because it's not very often that the Kentucky governor gets another term. This marks only the third time that a governor has won re-election. President Biden even called to offer his congratulations last night. Beshear says he has big plans for the rest of his term.
I pledge tonight to continue to be a governor who serves all our people, regardless of your party and regardless of who you voted for. These next 4 years, we have an opportunity to come further together.
The governor didn't get into policy hardly at all last night. Instead, we'll hear from him today at noon. He's hosting an event in Frankfort. We'll be there live. We'll also be streaming that for you on all of our web channels and on YouTube as well. Live here looking over Louisville, Josh Dinky, Wave News.
Thank you, Josh. Meanwhile, Attorney General Daniel Cameron fell short in his attempts to oust Governor Beshear. Cameron conceded the governor's race last night about 9:15, but he was still positive in his speech. He thanked members of his campaign, his mom, for all their hard work, and his family. When looking at a statewide breakdown, Cameron lost traditional Democratic areas and couldn't make up for Beshear's wins in rural parts of the state. He said he called Beshear and wished him well. He said the campaign for both of them was about improving this state. He also asked his supporters to pray.
I know from his perspective and from all of our perspectives that we all want the same thing for our future generations. We want a better Commonwealth, one in which it can ultimately be a shining city on a hill, a model and example for the rest of the nation to follow. And so as I did with Governor Beshear, I want all of us to think about what these next few decades will look like. And I ask that you pray for Governor Beshear and his team and for all of our Commonwealth.
So now another new Republican taking over the office of Attorney General. Wave News reporter Kathleen Ninke here with more on that.
For Attorney General, Kentuckians chose Republican Russell Coleman over Democrat Pamela Stephenson by a margin of 16 points. Coleman is a former U.S. attorney appointed by Donald Trump, but who stepped down after the Capitol riots. Stephenson is a retired colonel who currently reps Jefferson County in the State House. What's fascinating about the Attorney General race last election to this one is you can see regionally where the Democratic Party lost support. So look at 2019 right here. Look at our counties that went blue, and then look at 2023. You lose this big chunk, all support over in eastern Kentucky, while the numbers remain almost exactly the same, with the Republican getting 58% of the support. So again, when we flip from 2019 to 2023, you see the loss of support right there in eastern Kentucky, leaving in 2023 just these 3 counties right there that supported Pamela Stephenson. And when we turn on our heat map, you see by how much those 3 counties supported Stephenson, how much those voters were in the majority. And she actually, in each of those counties, received more support, including in Jefferson County. She got 61.6 this year, whereas Greg Stumbo 4 years ago got 59.4. So 2-point difference there from 2023. In Franklin County, looking at a 1-point difference, and then Lexington's Fayette County got about a 3-point difference there as well. So with that much more support in these 3 blue counties right here, it must translate to far less support for the Democratic candidate for AG in these huge swaths of western, southern, eastern, and northern Kentucky compared to 4 years ago. Shannon?
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Kathleen. So in addition to the AG, Republicans also took all of the other statewide offices with the exception of governor, including Secretary of State, Auditor, State Treasurer, Ag Commissioner, and Auditor. So let's take a closer look at that race for Auditor. Republican Allison Ball taking this position, beating the Democrat Kimberly Reeder. Ball coming in with 61%, Reeder 39%. Ball had some name recognition, of course. She served 2 terms as State Treasurer. She could not run for that position again because of term limits, but she did take 60% of the vote. So let's take a closer look right now at our state map right here. And you can see that Democrat Kimberly Reeder did take 3 counties. That was Jefferson County, also Fayette County, and Rowan County as well. And if I'm going to turn on the heat map right here so you can see just how much support they got. Again, the darker the color shows how much more support that party got. And while Reeder was able to take those 3 counties, it wasn't by a significant amount. So Ball says she is very proud to be going into this role now in this statewide race. It's 6:37 right now. We'll be right back.
And after the next 12, we're going to talk about, of course, sunshine coming our way for this afternoon. Highs in the 80s, so the kids at the bus stop should be A-okay for the ride in and for the ride home. But the wind is going to be a factor as the day goes along. I'll talk about these gusty conditions coming our way after the break.
640 in southern Indiana, several towns had high-level city offices up for grabs, from mayors to town council seats. Wave News reporter Olivia Russell taking a look from southern Indiana with some of those results, and some were very close, Olivia.
Yeah, Shannon, southern Indiana really proving how important every single vote is. One of the closest races we saw was for the mayor of New Albany. In the end, it was incumbent Mayor Jeff Gahan who held on and won his 4th term in office. He barely beat his challenger, Republican Ed Clear, by 313 votes. Gahan has served as mayor since 2012 and says he wants to expand initiatives and projects that have happened under his tenure. Over in Clark County, it was also a tight race for mayor in Charlestown. Democrat Treva Hodges was able to hold off Republican Ruthie Jackson by 318 votes. Hodges earns a 2nd term after being first elected to mayor in 2019. Jackson is a city council member, so she'll finish out the year on the council before she's replaced. And in Jeffersonville, Mayor Mike Moore also secured his 4th term in office on Tuesday. The Republican was running unopposed in this race, though. Reporting live in southern Indiana, Olivia Russell, Wave News.
All right, thank you, Olivia. Have you seen this video? It is crazy. Look at that. That is a deer that just jumps into a truck. Woo! Wow. And then jumps out. This happened in New Jersey, but the crazy thing about this is that pickup truck was perfect condition, and just at that exact moment, the guy who was going to buy it pulls up to do so, and then that happened, that deer. Boom, causing all sorts of damage. So the buyer still took the car, but the seller had to mark it down by $1,000. But that's crazy. I've watched this probably 100 times.
My favorite part is literally just the guy coming up to buy this truck, just parks his car, and then here comes the deer and just goes boop.
What are the chances that that happened at that exact moment?
I think the deer was honestly out to get them.
Yeah. Maybe the deer's getting a bit of that money, the extra $1,000. Yeah.
But yeah, so actually one thing that you do have to watch out for as you're heading out this morning are those deer that are going to be jumping out as we head, of course, through the fall months. But we're going to talk about more of that summer-like weather showing up for today in just 30 seconds. Meteorologist Juana Andrew here with a check of your forecast, and we're starting off today mainly sitting in the 50s. However, we do have a couple of warmer spots. 63 degrees in Paoli, 61 in Hardinsburg, Fort Knox, and at the airport in Louisville. Speaking of Louisville, across the metro, mainly seeing those mid to upper 50s for your current temperatures, so pretty mild as we're starting off today. Now we're peeking into New Albany, keeping an eye on these flags. They usually are just slowly floating in the breeze. Nope, they're pretty still right now as we're waiting for the wind to pick up later on today. The clouds are locked in across the region. We were watching a couple of stray showers showing up for those of you in parts of Jennings County, Jefferson County, Indiana, and Carroll County, but those have now exited the region. The front, though, is still hovering overhead, but this front will push to the north as we continue throughout the day, allowing for us to enjoy much more of that warmer weather. The clouds are locked in for now, but once we get closer to lunch, that is when you're going to see a lot more of that sunshine coming into the forecast, and that is going to play a role in the warming trend that we have for today, along with the wind. Right now, not seeing much, less than 5 miles per hour, that wind across the area. But as we get past lunchtime and we see much more of that sunshine later on this afternoon, the wind will start to really pick up, coming out of the south, gusting between 25 and 35 miles miles per hour. So yes, it is going to be a windy and warm day. That also means if you're driving a higher profile vehicle on more of our east-west roads, it's going to make travel a little bit more difficult. So we're talking the Waterston, parts of the Snyder, 64, the Lee Hamilton. This is where you can start to run into a few more of those issues. But overall, a warm day with those highs back into those upper 70s and the low 80s. By the way, 82 degrees, that is our record for the state. Set back in 2020, we could at least tie it for this afternoon. And as we look ahead to the next 10 days, here's what we have going on. A cold front sweeping through overnight into early tomorrow morning. It's going to do a couple of things. First, bringing some more of those showers into our forecast along with some clouds overnight. So towards midnight, some spotty showers here and there. Going to keep that chance around at least through 7 a.m. tomorrow. Once we get past 7 a.m., the clouds are going to start to move out. Temperatures falling down into the 50s by the mid-morning hours. Then, as we get into tomorrow afternoon, a lot more of that sunshine as temperatures try to rebound, but for most of us, we're only talking upper 50s and low 60s tomorrow afternoon. For more of those clouds roll on in. Yes, it's going to be cloudy but dry for the U of L game Thursday evening. Then we get into your Friday. The same front that moves through on Thursday is going to be hovering to our south, and we'll watch another wave of energy riding right along it, bringing some more of those showers back into our forecast come Friday morning. The main rain chance looks to be along and south of the Ohio River. So the further north you are, the drier you are going to be. Eventually, the front and the rain all push out of our region by Friday afternoon, allowing us to enjoy some cooler and more fall-like temperatures, 50s for highs on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, trying our best to warm up as we head further into next week. Here's the rest of your 10-day, those 60s showing up for most of next week, and most of next week with highs, the high pressure sitting over us, highs mainly in the 60s until Friday. That is when we'll see some of that rain showing back up in the forecast.
All right. Thank you, Tawana. Two of the big races in Kentucky featured relatively new faces to state politics. Wave News reporter Kathleen Ninke has more on that now.
Yeah, looking at those statewide results for all the races beyond governor, every single one of them won by the Republican. Looking specifically at agriculture commissioner, Republican Jonathan Schell won with 59.4% of the vote. He's a former state rep, and this is really a bit of a political comeback for him after he lost a bid for Congress in 2018. He defeats Democrat Sierra Enlow. Both candidates, interestingly, describe themselves as fifth-generation farmers here in Kentucky. Looking at Schell's win, though, it wasn't even close. But two counties flipped big. So I want to show you from 2019 to 2023, one of the counties that flipped and flipped red was Elliott County in eastern Kentucky. Gave the Republican 60% of the vote this year, as opposed to in 2019 when they gave the Republican Ryan Quarles just 44% of the vote. That is a 16-point flip. And then it went the other way for Lexington area, Franklin County. When we look at 2019, the Democrat only received more than 40% of the vote, and then a 14-point jump for Sierra Enlow here in 2023. In the end, though, it was not enough to combat the dozens of other states, almost all of them, that went for Schell, the Republican, for agriculture commissioner. And then when we look at treasurer right here, Mark Metcalf takes the win pretty easily with more than 57% of the vote. Michael Bowman, his opponent, loses the race, and loses the race for a second year in a row. He ran back in 2019, too, against the incumbent Allison Ball. But if you look from 2019 to 2020, he gained about 3.5 more points over what he made 4 years ago. Could be because 4 years ago he was up against a popular incumbent. Maybe his message is resonating differently with voters. Maybe he'll run again and third time's the charm, but probably not, because this one indeed pretty decisive for the Republican here. Metcalf, with his win as treasurer, he has limited power, though it is a constitutional position, but he says he plans to use the position to shine a light on the state's debt. Shannon.
All right. Thank you, Kathleen. Taking a look at some other news. A man set to go before a judge this morning after police say he tried to interfere with the election at a Louisville polling place. Jason Cockrell is charged with menacing, destruction of a voting machine, and interfering with an election. This happened at the Molly Leonard Portland Community Center yesterday. Police say he was waving a flag attached to a fishing pole and making threatening gestures toward voters. They say he intimidated at least one voter into not voting and caused damage to a voting machine by ripping off the printer attached to that machine. The trial of former LMPD officer Brett Hankison continues today. Yesterday, Breonna Taylor's neighbor told a jury drywall and wood flew into his face after Hankison fired his weapon. Cody Atherton told the jury he thought his apartment was getting broken into when bullets started flying into his house. Atherton went to check on his pregnant girlfriend and their son. He told the jury he didn't hear police announce themselves, but he did hear Breonna Taylor's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, begging Breonna to breathe. Hankison is charged with violating the civil rights of Taylor, Walker, and their neighbors for firing into her apartment. The trial continues today and tomorrow, and then it will pick back up on Monday. Ford giving an update on the ongoing contract vote with United Auto Workers. Louisville's UAW members will take that vote November 12th at the Galt House. But workers in Dearborn, Kansas City, and a handful of other cities have already voted. 71% of production workers have voted yes, 29% no. All employees at the Kentucky truck plant have already been called back to work. 87% of employees laid off by Ford because of the strike have also been called back. We'll be right back after this break, 6:51. Good morning. If you're just waking up right now in Kentucky, Republicans took all statewide races with the exception of governor. Democratic Governor Andy Beshear was announced the winner last night, taking another 4 years. Attorney General Daniel Cameron with 47% of the vote, but Beshear taking 53%. He promised to fight for all families in this state. Wave News reporter Josh Ninke joining us with more on this governor's race.
Man, Shannon, a huge race, not just for the impact on Kentucky for the next 4 years, but also because of the money spent between the candidates and political action groups. Spent more than $60 million on this. Now, the election wasn't nearly as tight as 4 years ago. The race was called for Beshear after about 3 hours, and Daniel Cameron conceded pretty soon after. It took Beshear's opponent more than a week to concede last time. Only 5,000 votes separated the two that year. Now, this time, Beshear won by about 70,000 votes. Now, in his speech, the governor didn't get very much into any policy last night, but he'll do that today. We'll have a chance to catch up with him in Frankfort at noon as he unveils some more of his policy decisions for the next 4 years. We'll be streaming that both online and on our YouTube page for you. Live here looking over Louisville, Josh Dinky, Wave News.
Thank you, Josh. Excuse me. And we're keeping an eye on those temperatures sitting in the 50s across most of the region right now. The clouds are still overhead, making for an interesting sunrise across Wave Country right now. But those clouds will move out as we head into the afternoon, allowing our temperatures to jump into the upper 70s and low 80s for your highs. It will be windy as well, with that wind steadily coming out of the south, gusting to near 30 miles per hour. And I will not be surprised if a couple of spots saw some gusts near 35 miles per hour. The rest of your 10-day shows much cooler temperatures. Yes, we're going to be near 80 today, but only in the low 60s for highs tomorrow, with some rain around in the morning and another chance of rain on your Friday before we have to deal with a quiet weekend and quiet weather for most of next week. And speaking of things that are quiet, the traffic map quiet this morning. No issues showing up on the roads right now.
Isn't that nice? Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna put on some suntan lotion today.
You're just gonna lay out.
Try to find a pool that's still open. I don't know.
I know. I mean, this is really rare, right?
We usually never see 80s in November, and here we are seeing it today.
Wow. I mean, even walking the dogs yesterday, they wanted to go home. They were tired and hot.
It's a little warm out there. I'll look forward to it switching back to fall.
Oh, yeah. Really? I'm going to enjoy this. I hope you have a great day. Much more election results throughout the day right here on Wave. The Today Show is up next, and we'll see you tomorrow.